Thank you, Jakob, and I'm really happy to be here today, to see all of you, and as Jakob already mentioned, to see so many familiar faces, but also new faces. And actually, I don't want to go that much into the history of the forum, although I like to, but what I would like to do is, well, give some input and some things to think about during the conference, and also like a quick introduction of what will happen during the 2 days. And as always, and those people that know my presentations probably have seen that slide, I would like to remind all of us to keep in mind why we are talking about carbon footprinting. Carbon footprinting is obviously an approach to somehow manage the challenge of climate change, and we are still very much on this business as usual pathway to much higher emissions in the future. Actually, we are beyond that, increasing even further than was predicted a couple of years ago by the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change and also other reports. And you also see the kind of pathway that we have to get on to limit global warming to a not so catastrophic degree. And that's also only part of the truth, this pathway, because it actually depends on kind of making the turnaround very fast, like over the next 3 or 4 years, emissions are still on the rise, and if we can make it very fast, then this is the kind of end amount of emissions, yearly emissions that we have to reach in 2050 and stepwise in between. But if we do it later, let's say in 2020 or so, emission reductions have to be much further down, even to something like in per capita terms of, instead of 2 tons per capita, perhaps 1 ton, 0.5, or even 0, if it's taking too long. And to kind of set the stage also for the discussions, we also have that perspective of consumption, that obviously carbon footprinting is a major element, and environmental footprinting for the other environmental challenges to address. So what is really the climate environmental impact, also the opportunities that exist on a consumption level, so in the provision of goods and services, but also in the use of goods and services. And this is just an example of how German greenhouse gas emissions break down to an individual consumer, and where we were a couple of years ago and where this pie needs to come to. And this is a very important perspective, which has also actually only been introduced on a bit larger scale over the past couple of years through the discussions around carbon footprinting and kind of beyond the more inner circle LCA community, but also to see it as an approach for private businesses, and not just on a political government perspective, but to actually find practical ways to address consumption. So carbon footprinting helps us to understand these emissions embedded in consumption, manufacturing, but also use of products. That is obvious. And I mean, I just slightly addressed when I say carbon footprinting, I mean the same holds true for our approach to environmental footprinting. We have other challenges that are very closely interlinked with climate change, actually, that also need or can greatly benefit from this kind of perspective to look at the full value chains of the goods and services we use. My question for these 2 days is, are we looking close enough by employing the concepts that we have really discussed intensely over the past couple of years, with standardization and also very practical approaches to communication, to developing tools, software, some databases, and so on. And just to take a step back and look again at the bigger picture of climate change. When we talk about carbon footprinting, we somehow obviously need to talk about fossil fuel use, which make up almost 60% of global greenhouse gas emissions, and deforestation as the second big element. So when talking about carbon footprinting, the question is, well, are we addressing closely enough the emissions that are really somehow behind all of these goods and services that that we assess so intensely, so detailed, in such a detailed manner, and where we end up, of course, also assessing energy used in the products. But how does this relate to the larger picture that we actually understand emissions come from fossil fuel use and deforestation? And you see this, I hope you can somehow see the graph on the right, depending, well, for all of you. And it's kind of interesting. It shows, and you don't need to have to read it all. Like these charts here down here are coal consumption in countries like North America, Europe, Africa, like the former Soviet Union and others. And this graph up here, guess what it is? It's the coal consumption in Asia, and how it relates to like our efforts to bring that down. So I would take the question one step further, because behind these fossil fuel emissions, it's largely coal behind it. Are we, like through the efforts that we are taking in assessing these products, do we have a close enough view of how much coal is actually behind each and every product that is produced? And this is kind of the perspective that I'm inviting you to additionally take during these 2 days, and kind of added in with a warning that the International Energy Agency released a couple of years ago, like in a sense a warning, with its big flagship report, and say, okay, we need to really address fossil fuel infrastructure. If that is not done in a radical manner, then we lose all chances to avoid dangerous climate change. And so with this, I'm inviting you to look at the next 2 days and ask yourself, or all of us together, how can we make carbon and environmental footprinting actually to a powerful tool, or to powerful tools for really reducing climate and other environmental impacts? And my question is, well, are we looking close enough? And also, what is the role of the private market? Because that's kind of the starting point for all of the carbon footprint discussion. What role can a company take practically on climate change, but also what approach can a consumer take in kind of close interaction? So with this, I'm really looking forward to 2 days of intense and interesting and fruitful discussions. The first day will very much focus on developments around carbon and environmental footprinting, which is around how can we make it more powerful, what we already have, in terms of strengthening the initiatives that are already taking place around the world. And in the afternoon, talking about product category rules, that is specifications for making product footprinting more practical, more comparable, more accessible, but also easier to implement it on a larger scale, given the different programs and schemes we have around the world. And a second session, and these two we'll introduce in more detail just before lunch, about how can we leverage actually the carbon and environmental footprint information that we are trying to gather so eagerly, and make the best use of it for everyone. And on the second day, we will invite you to explore with us together a bit more the kind of energy or renewable energy nexus around carbon and environmental footprinting. Because when we talk about fossil fuels and coal and replacing or getting rid of fossil fuels, of course, the other side of the coin is the renewable energy and renewable resource side. So as an alternative, well, how do we actually go about looking at renewable energy as an alternative? And is this reflected in carbon environmental footprinting? Does this need to be reflected in there, or is it like just an additional element? And I think the presentations we will have tomorrow will help us to explore that further. And I'm especially delighted to that we have two keynote speakers who will also take that perspective on both days and kind of from different perspectives, with Thierry Berthoud from the World Business Council for Sustainable Development and Stefan Singer from WWF International, kind of looking at, well, what is the role of the private market and what is the role of renewable energy in achieving our long-term goals. And just to make my presentation complete, or my short introduction, I would like to announce a couple of small changes. We have some additions in one of the dedicated tracks this afternoon. This we will announce before lunch. And tomorrow in the morning, there will be, instead of Andrea Brown, who cannot be with us tomorrow, it will be Mary Sotos, also from the Greenhouse Gas Protocol team, jumping in to provide the overview of Greenhouse Gas Protocol implementation and capacity building worldwide. And I'm happy to say that we additionally have Henry Garthwaite from the Carbon Trust, who's business development manager at the Carbon Trust certification, to kind of explain recent developments around the Carbon Trust work on carbon footprinting, the carbon reduction label, and also his observations on the decision by Tesco around carbon labeling and so on, I think, which a lot of us are also interested in to hear about. And then in the second session that day, we will have an additional input presentation by Sophie Hennes from Alstom Power, which also gives, I think, an additional interesting view in how we actually deal with the renewable energy questions in terms of measurement, but also in terms of really informing about possible pathways for users of renewable energy. So with that being said, I would like to, as always, and this all of you that have been here know, I'm always inviting you to do that. I invite you to not just talk about each other. These summits are really about talking with each other. That's why we initially created the PCF World Forum, out of the understanding where we're always talking about the others, what all they are doing, if it's good or bad, and so on. But really, what seems to be very fruitful is really to talk with each other and explore further the space that we are opening up here, the topics together, and see, okay, well, where is there really the energy for collaboration and making sense of all of that together. I invite you to do this in a really respectful, interested, open manner. Listen well. I think there's a lot that we can learn from each other here by listening well to others. What are they really doing? What is the motivation behind that? Can we actually strengthen their activities further by providing input here or afterwards? And thereby really engaging in a constructive dialogue towards the overall objectives that we all want to achieve, which is like in terms of climate change, but also the really practical grasp that we get on it. With that, thank you very much. I give the floor back to Jakob, and looking very much forward to 2 successful summit days together with all of you.